Wednesday. It's Bishop on Air, back at it. Another short show for you as I got to get back to the Capitol. Both session, House and Senate, they're going to continue on, and you've got a May 24th deadline for adjournment to pass a budget with simple majorities, but obviously limited tax dollars is going to be playing a role in how they craft this thing. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things that were asked for yesterday, but for those who tune in to get the latest in gun ban litigation news, today the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court is going to be holding a status hearing in the challenge against Illinois' gun ban that Judge Stephen McGlynn has on the merits, and they are lining up all kinds of attorneys showing that they're appearing. If you look at the docket, some of the most recent stuff is, the notice of some attorneys showing up on behalf of the state defendants, attorneys that are showing up on behalf of some of the plaintiffs. So clearly, they're going to be talking a lot about what's going on in this case as they move forward with a bench trial of the merits, no longer on preliminary issues, but on the merits. So that's going to be happening today. We'll do what we can to talk with at least one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs later on today, so that we can give you an update of what's exactly playing out in the courts and what we're going to see happen with a possible trial on the merits. So that is something we'll bring you tomorrow, as also you've got tomorrow being the U.S. Supreme Court taking several Illinois gun ban challenges and the challenge out of Maryland, looking at questioning the gun ban there, and they're putting that into conference. So the 16th, the U.S. Supreme Court will hold a conference. We could find out by the end of this month if they are going to take those cases, consolidate those cases, or say the cases aren't ripe yet. So we'll obviously keep you updated on that. So those are just some of the latest things. And I want to take a quick breather, come back and tell you about some of the things happening at the Illinois State House when it comes to your tax dollars. So stay tuned right here with Bishop on Air. Illinois state legislators talking about more ways to tax and spend as they march towards a May 24th adjournment date. That's when they hope to have a budget in place, but they have until May 31st to pass a budget with simple majorities. I'm Greg Bishop. It's Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out with me each and every weekday as we break down things happening in and around Illinois. So greatly appreciate you guys tuning in and being part of the program. And if you're not joining us live, you're missing out on the chats where tons of people flood and have all kinds of conversations via Twitter, via Facebook, via YouTube. So thanks to those who are in the chat room this early in the morning. So let's get to it. Of course, we've talked about Governor J.B. Pritzker asking state agencies to prepare for $800 million less than what the state had originally proposed in his budget request back in February. And that's a $52.7 billion budget spend. But a lot of demands being put on those requests, and legislators trying to find find an amenable way to the Democratic supermajority to bring about some revenue enhancements, or as others call them, tax increases. Yesterday, a Revenue and Finance Committee in the House was set to start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to discuss revenue projects for fiscal year 25. The next budget starts July 1st. So Illinois' budget year is July 1st through June 30th the next year. So fiscal year 2025 starts July 1st, and that's the budget they're trying to put together. But the House Revenue and Finance Committee was set to start at 2. They didn't actually start until about 6:30 or so, and they talked about the retailer cap for the discount they get, and the collection of sales taxes and remitting those back to the state and local governments. The sponsor of that bill, State Representative Will Guzzardi, even acknowledged that even small retailers say the discount's not enough to offset the cost of the retailer, the private business, having to collect those sales taxes. And what the state's wanting to do, at least with Guzzardi's bill, and as the governor proposed, they're wanting to essentially cap it at a certain amount. And it would ultimately generate $200 million in extra revenue for the state. Retailers pushing back, saying that Illinois has some of the largest taxing bodies, the multi-layered taxing bodies, and the sales tax remittance is rapid compared to other states, and it makes it onerous and burdensome for the retailers, large and small, and something that they're not a fan of possibly having to pay more in taxes to cover that. But you've also got other proposals that the House Revenue and Finance Committee discussed late last night, including ending the statewide 1% grocery tax. And this is something that happened a couple of years ago, if you remember, when inflation was out of control under the Biden administration. State governments said, you know what, we're going to freeze the 0%, we're going to freeze the 1% grocery tax for a solid year. And when they did that, it essentially takes away the tax revenue from local governments. So at that time, the state offset some of those revenue losses for local governments with, I think, like $300 million that the state gave to local governments during that year freeze of the grocery tax. Well, Governor Pritzker, during his February address, said, hey, we're going to get rid of the statewide grocery tax. Afterwards, municipalities were like, well, what are you going to do to offset it, the impact to us? And the governor would say, well, local governments can still enact a grocery tax if they want, and maybe the legislature passes something to allow for that. Local governments and their supporters essentially saying, well, that's a way to shift the burden from the state to the local governments and make the local governments look like the bad guy. Well, last night, Republicans had a proposal in front of the House Revenue and Finance Committee, and they only talked about it. They did not advance it, but it would essentially say that if you're going to freeze or make the grocery tax zero across the state, then the state would give the equivalent amount of lost revenue back to the cities and the municipalities. So is that something that's possibly going to happen? It was heard about in the House Revenue and Finance Committee late last night, so we'll see if that ultimately advances. But several different ideas, right? Because the governor in his memo last week said, hey, these tax increase proposals aren't popular and need to prepare for $800 million less in the budget. And while you've got that memo going out, you've got more ideas coming in on how to spend more money. Yesterday in the Illinois House, you had the measure that would ultimately give a teacher stipend for student teachers and for teachers working with those student teachers. $10,000 stipend per semester for a student teacher and $2,000 stipend to the teachers working with those student teachers. And the debate was interesting on the House floor with not just Republicans raising concerns, but Democrats raising concerns as well. So State Representative Barbara Hernandez, she carried the bill out of the House. You'll hear from State Representative Fred Crespo, Democrat from Hoffman Estates, who said, again, this is subject to appropriation. It's an empty promise, and taxpayers can't afford it. Then you have State Representative Laura Favor-Dias supporting the measure, while State Representative Blaine Wilhauer, a Republican from Beecher City, says that if this is an initiative of the teachers' unions, they need to pay for it. Here's how that played out yesterday on the House floor.
This will create a student-type stipend teacher program.
And let's make sure they don't sound like chipmunks.
This will create a student-type stipend teacher program that would allow students to receive $10,000 and cooperating teachers $2,000. This is subject to appropriation. as well. But as we all know, we have a shortage on teachers.
So Hernandez, he said that it's subject to appropriation, but if it was fully funded, it would be $68 million cost to the state. Again, $68 million. Think about that in comparison to the $800 million in cuts that the governor says state agencies need to find. If you're adding an additional $68 million while $800 million is being asked to be cut, kind of you can see where these pressure points start to arise. More from the floor debate.
There's a lot of things going on, so this would help them as an incentive to continue. Currently, there's no stipend program for the teachers. It's a pretty much unpaid internship, and they put a lot of hours into this program to receive nothing.
You know, here we go again, folks. We're passing bills that are subject to appropriations. I get the sense that we think that's like monopoly money. But you're creating a line item and you're putting pressure on the budget. It's an empty promise, gives people a false sense of hope, and I'll give you a good example. Last year we passed the Healthy School Meals for All. It was subject to appropriations and the cost was $200 million. Two programs. This program that we have right before us today is 68. The Healthy School Meals for All at $200 million. Two programs are putting a budget pressure of close to a quarter billion dollars. All I can say is you can't have it all. You can ask, but taxpayers can't afford it. If we keep this up, at some point you're going to run out of taxpayer dollars to spend.
We also saw that low-income teachers are having trouble completing their student-teacher experience and actually quit and never get their teacher license because they cannot afford to work for 16 weeks unpaid, many hours a week. And so there are some really great other programs that we have in this General Assembly, but this paid student teaching program addresses a unique issue.
We've got a shortage of workers everywhere. This probably isn't something the government should be getting involved in. And I'll go to the bill. It seems to me that the teachers unions specifically have plenty of money that they're more than happy to throw around in political races. They should be more than capable of doing this on their own. I mean, just they could have funded dozens of these student teachers with just the money that they basically set on fire in my district in this last race.
So if you recall, Wilhauer ran, and there were a Republican that was going against him in the primary, and the teachers' unions, I believe it was several hundred thousands of dollars they spent just in that district. So Wilhauer saying that if this is an initiative of the teachers' unions, they've got plenty of money to be able to fund these internships. So $68 million request, and that's, again, in the shadows of $800 million. The governor's saying that needs to be cut if tax increases aren't approved. You have the museums, and again, you can find all these stories at thecentersquare.com and watch more of this. But Illinois museums, they want $70 million in taxpayer funds. But they're also asking that there be no match requirements for that. So that's an interesting proposal, again, tacking on to the requests at the State House for additional funding. But you also have the Chicago Teachers Union expected to descend on Springfield today, where they're going to be lobbying for more state taxpayer money to go to Chicago public schools. We've heard the figure thrown around, $1.1 billion. So again, more requests stacking up as state taxpayers are being asked to fund all kinds of programs and priorities. So really do encourage you to go and check out thecentersquare.com, where you can find Illinois and read all the headlines there. Subscribe to the newsletter, and if you feel like it, make a donation. It's a nonprofit newswire agency as we celebrate 5 years, which is pretty incredible. 5 years of of the Center Square, Illinois. And I got to say, I'm just, listen, I do this on my own time, this program here from my home office. And I can't, express to you how humble I am that you guys tune in every day. But I do encourage you to go and check out the Center Square and subscribe there, where I have my full-time gig covering what happens at the State House. So very, very cool stuff. So like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, go to thecentersquare.com. If you're not in Illinois, we've got reporting out of other states as well. So all 50 states, go check it out and get the latest of what's going on at your state house. It is Bishop on Air. Greatly appreciate you guys being here. And short segments, but I tell you, I got to get back to the state house to track what's going on there. And I greatly appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning with Bishop on Air. All right, guys, greatly appreciate it. Shout out to those in the chat room, JL, Tenebris, Festus, AJ, Huckleberry, Nakuda, Randall. Who else we got? Brett, Dangerous Liberty, Keith. Who else? Guys are pretty active in the chat room. What is it? IKKIN Ba. Ikinba? Chipmunks sound better. Ernie's disconnected. That hasn't happened in a while, so knock on wood that's once in this week that's going to happen. Good morning to all of those who joined again in the chat room. We'll be back at it tomorrow to keep you updated. All right, it's Bishop on Air. Appreciate you guys.